She called
You're
me
a
a
stain on my
contamination in
family's
front of
name.
200 people. Her brother heard every word. When he turned
Why is she
around,
even
the
here?
entire
She doesn't
ballroom
belong
went
with us.
silent.
Enough!
What he did next changed everything. Power doesn't announce itself. It simply exists, heavy and undeniable, like gravity. That's what the Kim family gala felt like. A temple of wealth so absolute that even the air tasted expensive. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls. Marble floors stretched endlessly, polished to mirrors. Women wore gowns worth more than cars. Men discussed billion-dollar mergers like they were choosing breakfast. And then there was me, Amara Laurent, the only black woman in the room. Not a guest, a translator. Hired last minute when the regular one fell ill and my professor volunteered me without warning. I stood near the edge of the ballroom in a simple black dress. Elegant, yes, but clearly not from the same universe as the designer silks floating past me. I had one job: stay invisible, translate when needed, don't engage, don't draw attention. But invisibility has never been a luxury I could afford. I was doing fine at first, translating conversations between Japanese investors and Korean businessmen, keeping my head down, minding my business. Then the atmosphere shifted, the kind of shift that makes your pulse spike without knowing why. The room turned toward the grand staircase as if pulled by strings. That's when I saw him. Kim Jae-Won descended those stairs like a king surveying conquered territory. Black suit tailored so perfectly it looked like it was born on his body. Dark hair swept back, face carved from stone and shadows. He didn't walk. He claimed space. Every step was deliberate. Every glance was calculated. People didn't just respect him. They feared him. I'd heard his name whispered all night like a prayer and a curse. Heir to the Kim Empire. Legitimate business on the surface. Darkness underneath. The kind of man you don't look at unless you're ready for consequences. His eyes swept the room. Then they landed on me. Just for a second. But that second burned. He moved through the crowd like water parting around stone. People stepped aside without being asked. I turned back to my work, pulse racing, telling myself it meant nothing, that I imagined it. That's when I heard her voice. Sharp, cutting, cold. Kim Soo-ah stood in front of me flanked by two equally pristine women. 24 years old and already legendary for cruelty. Where her brother was ice, she was fire. Designer everything. Hair like black silk. Eyes like blades. She looked at me the way someone looks at dirt on expensive shoes. She asked who hired me. I told her I was the translator, hired by the event coordinator. She smiled. It wasn't kind. She said she knew what I was. She wanted to know why I was here. This event, she explained slowly, was for people of a certain caliber. The words hung in the air like poison. Around us, conversation slowed. People pretended not to listen while absorbing everything. Heat rose in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I was hired to do a job, and I was doing it. She smiled wider. Vicious. She told me how noble that was. Then she leaned in slightly and said I didn't belong here. And if I thought standing in the same room as them made me equal, I was more delusional than I looked. Her friends laughed. Soft, cruel sounds that echoed. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, to shrink, to disappear. But something in me refused. I told her calmly that equality wasn't about standing in the same room. It was about standing on your own merit. Something she might not understand. The laughter stopped immediately. Sua's eyes flashed. For a moment I thought she might actually strike me. Then a voice came from behind me. Low. Velvet over steel. Sua? That's enough that I didn't turn around, but I felt him. The heat. The weight. The sheer presence of Kim Jae-Won standing just behind me. Close. Protective. Sua's expression shifted. Shock. Anger. Something I couldn't name. She started to speak. He cut her off. Told her to apologize. Now, the entire ballroom went silent. Kim Jae-Won didn't make requests. He gave orders. And everyone obeyed. Even his sister. Sua's face flushed red. She looked at me with hatred so pure it could burn. She forced out an apology through clenched teeth. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking like gunshots. I finally turned to face him. Jae-Won looked down at me with dark, unreadable eyes. He said I didn't flinch. I asked if I should have. He almost smiled. Most people do, he said. Then he walked away, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding and the entire room staring. I knew right then, whatever this was, it had just begun. I thought that would be the end of it. One strange encounter at a gala I'd never attend again. I went home, took off the dress, and tried to forget the way his presence made my skin feel electric. But the Kim family doesn't let things go. 3 days later, an unknown number called. A woman's voice. Professional. Cold. She informed me that Mr. Kim Jae-Won requested my presence at the Kim estate the following day at noon. A car would be sent. I asked why. She said Mr. Kim would explain. The car would arrive at 11:30. She hung up before I could protest. I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, pretend it never happened. But curiosity, and something deeper I didn't want to name, made me answer the door when the black sedan arrived. The Kim estate wasn't a house. It was a fortress. Gates, guards, gardens designed by architects, not gardeners. The main building blended glass and steel with traditional Korean architecture into something that felt like a museum dedicated to power. I was led inside by a silent assistant, through hallways lined with art worth more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes, until I reached a private office. And there he was. Jae-Won sat behind a glass desk with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul spread out like a kingdom beneath him. He stood when I entered. He thanked me for coming. I asked if I had a choice. He almost smiled. There's always a choice, he said. I made mine. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat, spine straight, refusing to be intimidated. I asked why I was there. He said he had a proposition. I started to say I wasn't interested. He interrupted calmly. Told me I was a linguistics graduate student. Top of my program. Fluent in 5 languages. Working 3 jobs to pay for school because my scholarship didn't cover living expenses. He said I was brilliant and invisible. My stomach dropped. He'd researched me thoroughly. I asked what he wanted. He explained he needed someone he could trust, someone outside his world, someone who wouldn't be easily bought or intimidated. He needed a translator, yes, but more than that, someone who could navigate spaces where he couldn't afford mistakes. I asked if he thought that was me. He said he knew it was. He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. A contract. 6 months. A salary that made my vision blur. Benefits. Security. Protection. I told him it was too much. He said it was what I was worth. I looked up at him. His expression was unreadable, but something sharp and searching lived in his eyes. I mentioned his sister hated me. He said his sister hated everyone. That wasn't my concern. I told him it would be if I was working for him. He leaned forward, said I wouldn't be working for him. I'd be working with him. There was a difference. I stared at the contract. Every logical part of my brain screamed to run. But the part of me that was exhausted from being invisible, from being overlooked, from struggling endlessly, that part whispered to stay. I told him I wanted one thing clear. I wasn't some trophy, not there to make him look progressive or charitable. If I did this, I did it on my terms. His eyes gleamed. He said he wouldn't expect anything less. I signed the contract. With one stroke of a pen, my life became intertwined with his. The first 2 weeks passed in a blur. Meetings in boardrooms where billions were discussed like loose change. Negotiations in 4 different languages. Dinners with people who smiled while plotting destruction. I sat beside Jae-Won in cars with tinted windows. Stood in restaurants where every table cost thousands. Translated conversations where fortunes shifted on single words. I learned quickly that the Kim Empire was built on more than legal ventures. I didn't ask questions, but I watched. Jae-Won was exactly what people said. Cold, controlled, ruthless in negotiations. He never raised his voice, but grown men flinched when he spoke. Empires bent to his will with a single glance. But with me, he was different. Not soft, never soft, but present. He held doors without making a show of it. Adjusted the temperature in the car without asking if I was comfortable. Slid water toward me during long meetings. Small gestures. Deliberate. Noticed. and Suah remained a viper coiled and waiting. One evening at the estate, I was walking through a hallway when she stepped out from a side room. Arms crossed, cold smile fixed in place. She remarked that I was still there. I said I was still employed, yes. She told me I should know something. Her brother had a habit of getting bored, and when he did, people disappeared. I asked if that was a threat. She stepped closer, said it was a fact. I was a novelty, a distraction, but I would never be one of them. And the moment he realized that, I'd be gone. Her words were designed to cut. They did, but I didn't let her see it. I told her maybe so, but until then, she should get used to seeing me. I walked away before she could respond. But her words echoed. You'll never be one of us. A tea happened on a Thursday night. Jae-Won and I were alone in his private study at the estate. Late. Everyone else had gone home. We were reviewing contracts for an international acquisition. I was exhausted. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking and slid one toward me. He said I needed a break. I said so did he. He said he didn't take breaks. I told him that wasn't healthy. He countered that neither was working 3 jobs and sleeping 4 hours a night. But I did it anyway. I looked at him. Really looked. Saw the shadows under his eyes. The tension in his jaw. For the first time, he looked human. Vulnerable. I asked him quietly why me. Why choose me when he could have hired anyone? Someone from his world. Someone who fit. He was silent for a long moment. Then he set down his glass and looked at me with an intensity that stole my breath. He said it was because I wasn't afraid of him. I told him I never said that. He said I didn't have to. Everyone else looked at him and saw what he could do to them. I looked at him and saw a person. Something shifted in the air between us. He stood, walked around the desk, stopped just in front of me, close enough that I could feel his heat. His voice dropped low. He said I didn't belong in his world. I was right about that. But maybe that was exactly why he needed me in it. My heart became a drumbeat. His hand lifted slowly, carefully, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was fire. I whispered that this was dangerous. He almost smiled, said he knew. For one breathless moment, I thought he might kiss me. But he stepped back, always controlled. He told me to go home, get some sleep. I left, but I felt his touch on my skin the entire drive home. The annual Kim Family Charity Gala was the event of the season. Bigger than the first. More press, more power players, more eyes watching every move. And Suah had been planning something. I wore a deep emerald gown that made me feel like royalty. Elegant, regal, strong. Jae-Won stood beside me in a black tuxedo that made him look like he owned the world. Which, in many ways, he did. I felt the stares, heard the whispers, questions about who I was, why I was with him, speculation, judgment. Jae-Won seemed unbothered. Or if he noticed, he didn't care. But Suah noticed everything. She moved through the crowd like a predator, planting seeds, dropping comments, building towards something. Then it happened. Suah stepped onto the stage, took the microphone, smiled graciously at the crowd of 200 elite guests. She began speaking about the Kim family's pride and tradition, in legacy, in maintaining the standards that made them who they were. My stomach twisted. She said she wanted to take a moment to recognize the unique addition to their organization. She asked me to stand. Every eye in the room turned toward me. Jae-Won's jaw tightened beside me. But I stood, refusing to cower. Suah continued smiling. Said I was their new translator, hired to help navigate the complexities of international business. She remarked how refreshing it was to see her brother embracing diversity. The word dripped with condescension. Polite, vicious laughter rippled through the crowd. Then she tilted her head and wondered aloud how long this particular experiment would run its course. The room went dead silent. Humiliation burned through me like acid. Every eye felt like a brand, every whisper a knife. But before I could respond, before I could even breathe, Jae-Won stood. When Kim Jae-Won moved, the world stopped. He didn't walk to the stage. He didn't need to. He simply turned, looked directly at his sister, and spoke. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. He told her to step down. 3 words. That's all it took. Suah's smile faltered. She started to protest. He interrupted with a single word. Now. She stepped away from the microphone. Face pale. Hands shaking. Jae-Won walked to the stage. Every step deliberate. Every eye locked on him. He took the microphone. His voice was steel. Cold. Absolute. He said he wanted to make something very clear. I was not an experiment. Not a token. Not a temporary addition to be mocked or dismissed. He paused. Let the words settle. Then he continued. Said I was there because I was the most qualified person he'd ever worked with. I was there because I earned my place. And I was there because he chose me. He turned, looked directly at me, and said that anyone who disrespected me disrespected him. The room became a vacuum. No one breathed. No one moved. He told me to come to him. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I walked to the stage, climbed the steps, stood beside him. He took my hand. The touch was fire and steel and promise. He addressed the crowd again. Said from that moment forward, I was under his protection. Completely. Anyone who had a problem with that could speak to him directly. Silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Then someone began clapping. Tentative at first. Then another. Then more. Until the entire room erupted in applause. Not for me. For him. For his power. For his declaration. But he didn't let go of my hand. Suah stood in the crowd, face twisted in fury and disbelief. Humiliated. Defeated. And I realized the truth in that moment. Kim Jae-Won didn't protect me because it was convenient. He protected me because he chose to. And in his world, that choice was law. Later that night, after the crowd dispersed and cameras stopped flashing, Jae-Won found me on the estate balcony. The city stretched out below us. Soul glittering like scattered diamonds. Infinite and beautiful. I stood at the railing, still in my gown, letting the cool air calm my racing heart. He approached slowly, stood beside me. I told him without turning that he didn't have to do that. He said yes, he did. I said his sister would never forgive him. He replied that she would learn. Or she wouldn't. Either way, it didn't change anything. I turned to face him. Asked why. Why me? Why go to war with his family? He said he'd already told me. I wasn't afraid of him. I said that wasn't a reason to destroy family bonds. His voice dropped. Soft. Dangerous. He said it was when I was the only person who made him feel like he was more than the empire he was supposed to protect. My breath caught. He reached out, cupped my face with one hand. His touch was gentle but firm, claiming and surrendering all at once. He whispered that he didn't care what they thought, didn't care what the world said. He cared about me. I told him this was insane. He almost smiled, said he knew. Then he kissed me. Slow, deliberate, devastating, like he was claiming me and giving himself to me in the same breath. When we pulled apart, I was breathless, trembling. He asked me to stay with him, not because of a contract, not because of money. Stay because I wanted to. I told him he was asking me to choose a life I was never supposed to have. He said he was asking me to choose us. I looked at him. This impossible, dangerous, beautiful man who had stood in front of 200 people and claimed me as his own. And I realized I'd already chosen. The moment I signed that contract. Maybe even before that. The moment our eyes met across that first ballroom. I whispered okay. He pulled me close. Held me like I was something precious. Something worth burning the world for. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Completely. Irrevocably. Scene point 3 months later, Kim Suah attended our engagement party.